My son kept doing gross pranks to my daughter and won't stop because it is not hurting her, so I gave him a sickening punishment. Our son has recently been doing gross stuff to our daughter to get a rise out of her, and she really hates it. It started when she gagged when someone passed gas in a small room, and he thought it was funny, and now he's periodically tried to fart in her face, hold the doggy bag up to her nose when walking the dog, and huffed in her face in the morning without brushing his teeth, causing her to gag a lot. He thinks it's funny, but she really hates it and wants him to stop. He knows this, and I've told him this after the first 2 incidents, but he still did it again. He says, "I'm not hurting her, it's just a smell, it's funny, and she needs to get over it." In response, I told him, "Next time this happens, I'm going to make you smell something you won't be able to handle, and you won't get to stop smelling it just because you hate it or it makes you feel queasy." He asked, "What could you make me smell that's so bad?" And I said, "You don't want to find out. You don't give her any warning when you do these things, so you aren't receiving one either. I'm a vet tech though and have more than adequate means to follow through on this." He sort of rolled his eyes and said, "Whatever," but it did make him stop for a while. He burped in her face again yesterday morning and laughed about it. I simply told him, "All right, I'll be carrying out the punishment we'd discussed." I let my daughter take a mini vacation with my husband to get away from him in the meantime, to a local hotel and water park, while I prepare to administer his punishment. Just need a couple more dogs at work who need expressions. After talking with others about it though, I just wonder if it's too harsh a punishment. My husband fully supports it, and so do 3 of my coworkers, but 2 of them say it's too harsh, and that a smell this bad is way disproportionate to burps and farts. I said that everyone has a different tolerance to these things though, and if he repeatedly violates his sisters, then he needs to realize what it's like to be on the flip side of this. I told my husband I was having second thoughts and wondered if it was too harsh of a punishment, but he said, "It's not undeserved and you have to follow through on your promise." Update. It was pretty clear I had to follow through or wouldn't be respected, and that the punishment was fitting. Most people seem to agree, except for the radical modern people for whom the concept of punishment seems total alien to them as a concept. I talked to my daughter and husband on the phone one more time too, and she said I for sure needed to follow through. There was a pug with a particularly funky gland expression at work that day too, so perhaps Providence was also showing its agreement. Some were telling me to wake him up with it or stink up his room, but I didn't want the house to smell for ages. I just told my son to come to the backyard with me for his punishment, and that if he at any point resisted or refused, I'd have Dad come home to assist, and the punishment would be 20 times longer. I made clear that was literal. He said, "Fine, let's get this over with," and followed me out. I showed him the jar. It had 12 dogs' expressions. Told him I was going to pop the lid and hold it to his nose, and he was going to take 3 sniffs. And that's what he did. It got a bigger reaction than even I expected. After the first sniff, his eyes widened and he was gagging, and he was holding his tummy afterwards saying, "Oh my God, that is hideous." I told him, "It's just a smell. It's not harming you, right? Shouldn't I be able to do this as often as I want if I think it's funny, just like you do to your sister?" He said, Okay, I learned my lesson. I'll stop," and turned to go back inside. But I said, "Oh no, don't you remember what I said would happen if you did that to your sister again? You weren't going to get to stop smelling it just because you hated it, just like she wasn't." He looked back at me as if hoping I was joking, and I said, "Think about how your sister felt, knowing you were going to do this again and make her feel sick and being powerless to stop it." I then gave him a choice. He could put his nose over the rim for 3 minutes straight and get it over with right now, or he could come back outside with me every hour on the dot for another 2 sniffs until I decided the lesson had been learned. He agonized over the choice and said there was no way he could do 3 minutes, so chose the latter. Once per hour that day we went back outside, and it never seemed to get any easier for him. But after only the 4th time I said I think he's learned his lesson, because I could see it was really getting to him. Didn't want anything overly harsh, but something very unpleasant, which I think was achieved. I told him that I think he's learned why these sort of pranks aren't funny to people, and that if I ever heard of it happening again, he'd be spending a good long while with his nose in a jar like this, or worse. I think he got the message. Daughter and husband came home from their mini vacation later that night, and there have been no incidents since. I think he got the message loud and clear.